Production is expensive, right? And, everyone has a bottom line, and it's not just money, but also people's time.
You're listening to Ignite the Frame.
Today, we're going to be talking about how to get the most out of your footage, which is a big topic. But maybe we have a few tips I know we want to talk about. But maybe, first of all, why in all the world do we want to get the most out of our footage? Why do we care about this?
Well, production is expensive, right? And, everyone has a bottom line, and it's not just money, but also people's time and spaces that we're often shooting in people's businesses and things like that too, right?
Yeah, and that really is a significant thing. And that's often what we chat with people about early on in a project is, you might be creating something for one purpose. It might be celebrating a milestone or a fundraising campaign or something. But how do you get the most out of that content? And that, because production day costs a lot of money. It takes a lot of people and effort to shoot something. So if you're out there, let's try to make the most of it. So so we have 3 tips that we want to talk about and share with people. The first tip is to plan it from the beginning. So I guess, thinking about what are the different ways you could use this content, but thinking about it early on before you're filming stuff. Because sometimes a little bit more planning and a little bit more work early on will let you repurpose content and use it in different ways.
Well, when you involve all the stakeholders as well at the very beginning, you can talk to your marketing side and maybe even for training and purposes and stuff like that, where those can be more nuanced. Some of that B-roll and footage can liven up some of your training as well. So maybe if you're there already, let's say for an elementary school, if you're there in the classroom filming them doing a technique in teaching, then you can also bring that into their training footage and involving people who make the most sense to involve. Not too many people to make it too many voices, but to just even have a conversation with everyone about what they would like to use video for and how could you potentially incorporate that into the day or days that you're filming.
Yeah, that's something that I'll often talk with people about early on is one, who are all the stakeholders in a project? Who all is involved in this? And making sure their voices are at the table and heard. And then 2, what is the bigger picture of your marketing, communications, PR plans? How to take that content and be able to use it as widely as possible. Some things are obviously more specific to a certain message or event or something like that, but the more that people can take that content and be able to reuse it, the better it's going to be for them. The other thing, I guess, that I know we will often talk to people about is creating different versions or thinking about different versions. We have some clients where we've done recruiting videos. So how do you take that recruiting content, but then also reuse that or be able to reuse that in other scenarios? There's lots of ways to kind of take that and then apply it to something else down the road, or even just keeping your options open so that content is available and accessible when you need it, because that is something that comes up very regularly now with social media. And I guess that brings us to the second tip that we're going to share.
Yeah. So tip 2 would be making it timeless.
Yeah.
And thinking about kind of elements that make things so very timely and kind of omitting those and making sure that you're not talking about, today on October 14, and add the year and everything like that. Like that is, it's too specific and it very much dates it. And with our fast-paced world, people don't like things that are a few months old sometimes, especially when it's glaringly obvious that it is. Repurpose content even. Because you can make it so that it doesn't feel like the same video that the footage was in before as well, right?
Yeah, and there's a kind of a thought that we've always tried to work by is, if it isn't something that has to be dated, the only thing that should really kind of get old would be maybe clothing styles.
Yeah.
And you look at something a few years down the road and think, it doesn't look as current. You look at it 5 years down the road and think, yeah, that's really not current.
Hairstyles
and things like that change, of course. So you can't make content that'll be evergreen indefinitely. But if you can make content that can be used now, and it can be repurposed 6 months or a year or 2 years from now, that'll really add a lot of value. And it makes it easier when you're trying to, allocate budget or time to something.
Yep.
Coming back to your point from earlier, it takes a lot of resources to create content for an organization. If you think, you have 10 people involved in a video project, which is a small number, there's oftentimes more, and you're tying up resources, the people's time, facilities. You're often asking, facilities people to do things, turn off lights, turn off HVAC, move things around, all that. Not even counting the production costs themselves. That's a lot of resources to put into something. And if you can try to get as much as you can out of that content, I think it's great. Not that we're not happy to come back and shoot more stuff.
Of course.
But I love it when I can see people really getting good value out of what they're out of what we're filming for them and that.
Yeah, even leading up to the shoot, getting your people talking to the production company of there's so many meetings beforehand. What do we want to do? What do we want to make? And having all those conversations, if you can kind of think big picture of how do you want to display your brand or your company over the next year on social media, because that is something that every company or brand needs to be thinking about these days. And so you need to show up in one space or another online. And how do you want to do that? And maybe you can make a plan that, is more cohesive, that you can actually show up in a really cohesive way as well. Another point under making it timeless is thinking about the aspect ratios that you want to have in the end. So filming in a way that you can make a vertical and a horizontal, a 16:9 version, or a square. It's mainly if you've shot it on your phone in vertical, there's no way that you're going to be able to make that look good in a 16:9 ratio. And so just keeping that in mind, that if you have a really nice, beautiful, wide shot in 16:9, well, you won't be able to see, you'll be able to see like a third of that in vertical. Will it make sense then?
Yes.
And making sure that you're always kind of like setting up the shot in that regard of trying to make sure that it makes sense in all vertical and 16:9 ratios are the main.
And thinking about how, not only aspect ratios, but lengths of videos as well.
Yeah.
If you're doing longer form content, or short form content, making sure that you have takes that work for both, or have options to create both, because that is something that we see all the time. There's very few organizations, and I'm not talking about, really small businesses. I'm talking about, organizations that would have, maybe 50 or 100 people or more, that are not creating content one way or another. And even if they're not actively creating content on a daily basis, there's often things will come up. We get a lot of requests from people, from clients of ours that are looking for content because they've been nominated for an award, or they are submitting, an application for something, or responding to an RFP or RFQ, and they have to have video content to go along with it. So it's not uncommon to need footage for things like that. So, even if you don't think, we're going to be, making a whole bunch of different things as part of a campaign, think about how that can be used elsewhere, because there's a lot of opportunity to reuse content.
Even for training purposes and stuff like that.
For training,
too,
that's
right?
really common. Presentations, annual reports.
Yeah.
We get people asking for things, when they have tours coming through, or if, investors are coming to look at something or whatever. There's lots of cases where having that content available, even if it's just, some specific shots or whatever, is really valuable. And I guess that kind of brings us to the last tip, which is to build a video library. I don't see this in a lot of organizations. It kind of surprises me. It's not that hard to do on a really basic level. But to have an organized library where you can find footage, you can do the same thing with photos and other media assets. Some larger organizations, are using specific software and doing that really well. But even just organizing it in file folders on your computer or on a server is really great. To have access to that, so you can draw from that stuff as you need, and be able to share it quickly and easily. And it's not a case of, we made a video 3 years ago and we have to go back and find it. Because then it can, be a real challenge to dig that out and make use of it.
And maybe you just need 1 or 2 shots for a simple post, and, or for your presentation even, and you're trying to liven up your presentation a little bit. Obviously, visuals aid tremendously in making your point and making something interesting as you're presenting. So having just a few clips that exactly kind of what you do have, because I think, if you are filming for your company for several years, you might not realize, hey, actually, I have a really good shot that would work for this, that I kind of forgot that I have. But if you have it organized, if you have an easily accessible way to get access to your library, you can check and take a look.
The other thing it helps with maybe a larger organization, especially organizations that are a little bit siloed. I'm thinking of like municipalities, universities in particular, that have a lot of different departments. If they have access to this media, and if that is accompanied by proper like brand standards and brand guidelines, that can really help them. I know as someone on sort of the receiving end of that information and that media, if this is what we can use, this is where it came from, this is how it should be used, that can be really helpful and go a long way to helping others create great media. It can also be helpful if in an organization you have people who aren't, people that work in production, but they're putting together a presentation or something. It can help steer them to creating really good stuff, or at least stuff that is on brand and not terrible. We've seen that a lot of times, and been in the awkward situation of, seeing someone creating something and then going, oh, I know that does not meet their standards, and that's, the fonts they're using or the way they're using that's off brand. And then, having to kind of gently broach that subject or steer them to the right person on the comms team and say, hey, you should probably make sure this works, because ultimately you want the organization to be represented really well, right?
And consistently throughout. In all social media platforms and things like that, right? Making even graphic templates that people can use as a simple video file for them to slap at the end. Just really elevates your brand and keeps it consistent throughout. Everything. It
makes a big difference and helps you get the most mileage out of your content. So just to recap, the 3 tips are to plan for it, to really work to make it timeless, so it's not something where you date it more than necessary, and then to make it accessible, build a library. And hopefully this is useful information for someone out there that's maybe thinking about how they want to, use video in an organization, or how to take it to the next level.
Thanks for listening to our conversation today. We'd love it if you'd follow and give us a rating. Ignite the Frame was produced by Atomic Spark, your video partner.